You're good at selling car and home insurance, and that's exactly why you're struggling to sell life and health. See, car and home insurance are demand products. People ask for them. They have to have them. You just have to not mess it up. But life and health, that's another story entirely. No one's calling in for a life quote. And if they are, it's usually too late. Life and health insurance is sold, not bought. So if you wait for the customer to bring it up, you're missing your shot. In fact, 90% of the time, you're playing a losing game. And when you try to bring it up while they're looking for car and home insurance, they're just going to get annoyed with you. If you don't fix this, you'll stay stuck overworking your existing book, watching others live the life you want, and missing out on massive commission checks. This isn't just about selling more. It's about changing how you sell. Look, when I first got into this business, I bought into the hustle culture. I was grinding, making cold calls, trying to sell everything to everyone. For a solid year, I couldn't write a single life insurance policy, not one. I was definitely trying. I was quoting auto. I was talking to people, but I didn't know what questions to ask. I didn't know how to bring up life and health into the conversation. So initially, I just avoided it and told myself, hey, maybe I'm just good at auto and fire. That's what I like to do. But in reality, I was just hiding. I was insecure about writing life and health insurance. It wasn't just that I liked auto and fire that much. I remember it like it was yesterday. I was putting in the hours, learning the products, but nothing was clicking. I was making hundreds of cold calls a day, and I wasn't even in the neighborhood of writing life insurance. People would say, sounds good, I'll think about it, and then I'd never hear from them ever again. I knew that they should have more coverage, but I just couldn't figure out how to get them there without being pushy or salesy. The very first time I did write a life insurance policy, it was a tiny term bump, like $6 a month, and it was on an existing client. That then led me to my next problem. I only had so many in-book clients to work with. So I had to figure out a way to sell life and health insurance on raw new clients as they came in. And the problem is, there aren't a lot of people looking for life and health insurance. They're usually looking for car or home insurance. When I would try to bring up life insurance at the end, it always felt like it was way too late. When I asked other life and health producers how I could write more, I always heard the same thing. Connect with people, build more rapport, ask them about their family, ask them what they do for work, take interest in them, and then, once you have that connection, you'll be able to sell them the life insurance. But I never seemed to have luck with it. And it always felt very manipulative to just be asking people about their family, knowing that I was just going to sell them life insurance. There were three main lessons that I learned that took me from below average to leading our agency to the top 10 of the largest captive insurance company in North America, and helped our new team members start writing life and health within 30 days of starting instead of 1 year like me. The first thing you have to do to be able to write life and health insurance is realize that it's not harder to sell, it's just different to sell. It's not a demand product. It's not like car or home insurance, renter's insurance, condo insurance, you name it. There are laws, banks, and landlords requiring you to have that insurance. If you can sell a lot of it, that's great and you make good money. But it doesn't mean you're actually selling. You're just processing at that point, especially when you're less expensive. But selling life insurance, disability insurance, or supplemental health insurance requires a totally different approach. It requires way more emotion. The most common mistake that new producers make, and honestly most producers in general, and the mistake that I used to make when it comes to selling life or health insurance, is that you treat it like it is selling car and home insurance. And even though you know you probably shouldn't, you don't know what else to do. This is where the concept of the pivot comes in. Pivots are exact phrases and approaches that we use to break through that initial resistance and honestly, sometimes avoid the resistance completely. If you're ready to start working smarter and truly understand how to shift the conversation, I've put together a free guide with the top 3 pivots, word for word tracks that you can use right now on new or existing clients to bring up life, disability, and supplemental health insurance. These pivots are word for word what we say every single day in our office, and they're one of the main things we changed that started allowing us to write more life and health insurance, and more specifically to do those on our raw new PNC leads. Click the link in the description to grab your free pivot PDF now and start seeing results. It's in the description, it's free. Now, once you understand that you have to proactively sell life and disability with pivots, the next step is crucial. You need to be emotional. Selling car and home insurance is often a matter of comparing numbers and coverages, right? This company's cheaper, This one has better liability limits. But you can't just throw numbers at a client for life insurance and expect them to sign up. You need to paint a vivid picture of what not having the coverage looks like. Make it as personal as possible to drive the urgency to do the coverage. Think about it. What happens if they don't have life insurance and something unexpected happens? Don't just say their family will struggle, describe the struggle. Their kids might have to drop out of school. Their spouse might lose the house they've built together. All of their dreams of retirement could be shattered because of all the savings they worked hard for now have to go to daily expenses. You have to tap into that fear, that desire for security, their love for their family. I learned to ask questions like, if you weren't here tomorrow, who would pay for your kids' college? Who would pay the mortgage? Who would ensure your spouse could maintain their current lifestyle? And I get it, this might seem uncomfortable at first, especially if you're used to a more transactional approach. But at the end of the day, you can't buy love, but you can sell it. You need to make them feel the potential pain of not having this coverage so that they understand the immense relief and security that comes with having life or disability insurance. The reason this emotional approach works so well is that it leverages a core psychological principle. People are motivated by avoiding pain and gaining pleasure. When you paint a clear emotional picture of the negative consequences of not having coverage, you tap into that deep-seated human need for security and protection. This isn't about being manipulative, it's about being a true advisor. If you stay surface level, you'll just be another salesperson. And only 3% of people trust salespeople, while 27% trust advisors. You want to increase your odds of someone trusting you by 9 times by sounding like an advisor. If you don't focus on this emotional connection, you'll keep spinning your wheels, working harder, and staying stuck. And finally, the third breakthrough, writing life and disability insurance shouldn't be done only on your existing clients. It should also happen on raw new clients if that isn't obvious already, especially when they're coming in as auto or home leads. A belief that a lot of insurance agents have, especially when the majority of their business is P&C insurance, is that life and health insurance is only be written on existing clients. Meet with them for a review and then bring up the life or health insurance at the end. For a long time, I thought that was the case too. But then I started to think, what if there's a way to write life and health insurance on the way in? My initial thought was there are always so many people quoting car and home insurance, and they're always thinking about life insurance but not acting on it. There has to be some way to take that conversation about the car or the home and turn it into life and health production. We used to wait, we'd get the new client settled in, maybe we'd set up an onboarding call to do a cross-sell, or we'd wait a few months and call them, or we'd wait a year and do a review. But by then, they'd already moved on, or they'd forgotten about us, or they'd just close their mind to any additional conversations because they see us as just a car and home insurance company. Waiting that long to bring up life or health insurance is like going to the grocery store, getting all of your groceries, checking out, and then having the clerk recommend something else for you to buy. By then, it's way too late. Once the money's changed hands, the deal is done in the customer's mind. And now it just feels more awkward than ever to bring up that life or health insurance policy. That's why it needs to be a pivot you use along the way, all while making it feel like one cohesive conversation. When we started using the auto conversation to pivot to life and disability insurance and write it all on the front end, it totally changed the way our office worked. It tripled our overall life and health production. Our book was no longer overworked. We stopped chasing after existing clients for additional policies and started building fully protected clients right from the start. Instead of writing just 20 life and health policies a month, we started doing over 70 life and health policies per month. And now, about 70% of our life and health production comes from raw new leads, not from existing customers doing reviews. You're probably thinking though, I've already tried bringing up life and health on raw new leads and they just get annoyed with me. You're totally right, but that's where we start digging into the psychology of selling life and health insurance, how it's different than selling property and casualty insurance, and how you can have this cohesive conversation that leads to writing life and health insurance on your raw new property and casualty leads. For example, one pivot we use every single day, nearly every single conversation to sell a lot of disability insurance and supplemental health insurance is the medical payments pivot. Odds are, if you're selling car insurance, at some point you're going to have to explain how medical payments coverage works or how personal injury protection coverage works. We always do our same spiel and explain how medical payments coverage works. And then we use that to take an auto conversation and turn it into a conversation about the person's benefits. It would look something like this. On here, I have medical payments coverage. If you cause an accident and get hurt in the process, it'll pay the first $5,000 of each person's medical bills before any health insurance kicks in. We always want to align this with your health insurance. Where do you have your health insurance right now? The person will simply say, I've got it through work, or I have whatever company. What I want you to know right now at this point in the conversation as the insurance agent is that we're not trying to replace their major medical insurance. In fact, we don't even have a major medical insurance policy at our agency to sell. We're just trying to get them to start talking about their work coverage, so that way once they say who they have, we can just simply ask, is that through work? 90% of the time, it will be. And then they say, oh yeah, I do have that coverage through work. Or yeah, I've got coverage at work. I'm good. I don't need anything else. That's when you can let the customer know that, hey, I'm just asking to learn more about your situation. I'm not even trying to replace it. By the way, what other benefits do you get through work? This is normally when the customer will name off a few different benefits. And then if they don't say disability insurance, we always say, do they offer disability insurance? Then the person might say, yeah, I think they do. And then we ask them, well, how much do they give you? They might think about it for a moment and then say, well, I don't know. And then you can say, typically it's about X percent. Does that sound familiar? Typically, state to state, there'll be a different max on how much long-term disability you can have. Know that number, find out what it is, Google coordination of benefits, but then you can use that number with people. Or just pay attention to what people have for their benefits, especially if you're in a town with any major employers. But you'll ask, hey, typically it's this percent. Does that sound familiar? They usually say, well, yeah, it does. And then you just simply explain, okay, well, if you got sick or hurt, would you want X amount of your income replaced or all of it replaced? The reason this works really well is that as far as I know, there isn't any standard disability policy that covers 100% of someone's income, especially through work. And that's where we come in. Whatever that difference is between what they have and what they actually make each month is usually what we can cover with an additional disability policy through us. So that's when we simply ask, do you want X amount replaced or all of your income replaced? Because it's an easy way to get the answer we want, which is all of our income, which allows us to then simply go to the side and quote disability insurance on them while we're still talking about the car insurance. This is where the psychology of selling life or health insurance kicks in. They're already looking for the car and they know they need car insurance, but now we're creating a need on the spot that they didn't even think about and didn't even know they had. But we're also asking about it in a way that makes it ridiculous not to at least see what the coverage would look like, because everyone wants all of their income. And at the same time, since we pivoted off of the medical payments coverage of their car insurance, it doesn't feel like a pitch. It feels like it's part of the conversation. Now, if someone asks, hey, is this different coverage? Is this separate coverage? Or what are you trying to sell me? You can let them know it is separate coverage, it is disability coverage, or whatever you want to say, depending on your situation. Say it confidently and then go back to what you were saying, then calculate their need. And when you calculate their need and what it would cost, don't say the price of disability insurance just yet. Keep that number to the side and then keep going through the rest of the auto coverages and then say the total quote at the end. Again, this is where psychologically we're just making it feel like one conversation, so that way someone isn't getting annoyed with us for going away from the original product they were looking for. Now, I know what some of you guys are probably thinking. Hey, that sounds great, but what if I still get an objection? Here's the thing you have to realize. You have to go into these pivots with a fresh mind, because the way you were going about life or health insurance is the reason you were getting the objections in the first place. The first one being the way you brought it up. If you're going straight for a product and pitching it in the wrong place, or just pitching in general that someone should need it because most of their clients take it, then you're going to lose people right away, because it's not about them anymore. It's what other people have done, and it's what you think they should do. That's why these pivots are so important, because you're asking questions to guide the person towards realizing that they have a need that hasn't been met yet. On the other side of the coin, some of you might just be quoting a random small disability or small life insurance policy just because you think the sheer fact that it's very inexpensive or even free sometimes because of multi-line discounts, that will get the person to buy. And while it will get some people to buy, most people won't. And then you'll sit there wondering why they didn't get free life insurance. Anybody in their right mind would get free life insurance, right? But the problem is the way you got there. And the reality is you didn't actually solve that person's real need. If you're calculating the person's need, it becomes a lot harder for the person to object to it. If they just said they need all of their money to come in because their work would only cover half of it, it's a lot harder for them to say no when you bring up the solution. That's why you can't just hope for these little policies to go through. And on top of that, it's the same amount of work to write a small policy as a big policy. most of the time. The customer still has to go through the underwriting process, it's still a pain, and now their family gets less money and you get a smaller commission check. So that's why not only do you need to calculate, but if you do calculate, you're going to realize that people need a lot more coverage than you initially assumed, and definitely a lot more coverage than they thought they needed. Most people that are in their 30s with kids are going to need at least $1 million of life insurance, for example, and a need to replace their income so that way they can pay off any debt, send their kids to college, cover a funeral, and you name it. So for example, if you are presenting $1 million life policy to do all of those things and it's $60, it sounds better than just a free $100,000 policy or a $7 $100,000 policy because of a discount, because it simply does more. And it was based on what they needed. So again, go to the description, download a PDF with even more pivots, and start weaving them into your auto conversation to make the whole conversation a lot easier and make it needs-based based on their disability and their life needs. It'll help out the customer even more, and in return, it'll help yourself out even more because you'll sell more policies and even better policies. Now, I get it. It took me a year to write my first life policy, but now I can help people do it within 30 days because now that you have this information that I didn't have, it can help you a lot faster. It's not just about connecting with a person and making them feel good. It's just about asking the right questions at the right time using pivots, and then from there, actually calculating the person's needs to figure out how much life or disability insurance they may need. You see, the psychology of insurance sales, especially when it comes to multilining, is about understanding these core differences. It's about being proactive, being emotional, and being smart about when and how you introduce these coverages. Now, if you like that and you want to get better at working your leads, whether they're new or old, watch my next video, You're Working Your Insurance Leads Wrong. Now that you know how to pivot and sell life and health insurance on these raw new leads, you need to have a system that automatically queues up your leads at the best times to call them, helps you recycle old leads, and get a 50% increase in overall production within 2 weeks. Click here to watch that video now.